Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. As we enter 2025, our focus is clear. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making while keeping humanity at the heart of their organizations. We'll dive deep into strategic thinking frameworks like my T-Switch strategic thinking method to help you navigate complexity and lead with clarity and purpose. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. Whether you're a seasoned leader or an aspiring trailblazer, this podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Paul Koetke. Paul is the founder and managing partner of Koetke Consulting, a firm trusted by Fortune 500 companies as the #1 solo Smartsheet Platinum Partner in the U.S. Paul has implemented over 100 enterprise-level project management office solutions, delivering real-time visibility and measurable results for industry giants like Cushman & Wakefield, Johnson & Johnson, Lineage Logistics, and Public Storage. With a decade of hands-on Smartsheet expertise, Paul helps companies eliminate data silos, streamline chaotic systems, and make million-dollar decisions with confidence. From creating a live dashboard for $160 million in capital projects to reducing onboarding time by months, his work transforms how organizations operate at scale. Known for skipping the handoffs and diving in personally, Paul brings practical strategies and field-tested frameworks to every conversation. If your listeners are tired of flying blind in project management, they're about to hear what real visibility sounds like. Truly pleased and honored to have Paul with me today. How are you, Paul?
Hey, John, I'm doing. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So let's start by asking you a personal question. Tell me a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what were some of the influences in your early life?
I grew up in Seattle as a Seattle native and spent a lot of time ski racing was my big hobby there. There are a couple different mountains just outside Seattle. And so I actually grew up ski racing at Stevens Pass. This gave me early on this kind of competitive spirit. And for those of you that aren't familiar with ski racing, it's a fast sport. Runs are typically around a minute. So shaving down seconds is huge. Tenths of seconds is great. This competitive edge brought me naturally into industrial engineering when I went to school, learning about process efficiency, how to get more widgets per hour through a manufacturing process. And ultimately where I settled was at Smartsheet. I was working there for a couple of years before starting my own practice, helping customers build their project management solutions and gaining those efficiencies in their business day to day.
Oh, great. Well, everything you learn never gets wasted. It all adds up in the end, as they say.
Exactly.
It's great.
And it's just as fun as ski racing in some weird way, but
yeah, I can imagine, especially when you have a feeling of accomplishment. You've done something
Yep.
for an organization, they're moving down the road, doing better, and they recognize the value you bring to the situation and to the formula. Let me ask you this question, if I can, Paul. You've implemented over 100 project management office solutions using Smartsheet. What makes Smartsheet your go-to platform And how do you make it work across such a diverse range of industries?
Smartsheet has been the category leader for quite some time now. Gartner has repeatedly ranked them as the #1 market leader within the collaborative workspace. It's a company or platform that I've been working with for almost a decade at this point. They've been able to stay ahead of the curve, have the best and most reliable platform on the market. That's a bit around my choice to why I use Smartsheet, why I've stuck with the platform. In terms of applying it to different industries, it is a very flexible platform. Out there, you have a lot of rigid platforms that are well built for scalable, standardized, repeatable processes. Think ERP systems, CRM solutions, accounting software. And Smartsheet is designed for more flexible work that you're managing. Think project management, ticketing requests, things that have some variability and don't always follow the same exact path. It's an adaptable platform that fits into all sorts of businesses. The analogy I've liked to use is think of it as an Iron Man suit. Rather than you conforming into a specific box, this suit takes you and your process and allows you to amplify what you're able to do.
Oh, great. I was wondering, could you give me, without naming names, of course, I don't want to give away state secrets, but could you give an example of a specific project that you worked on and how you used Smartsheet to generate the results that you wanted to? Tell me a little bit about the project and tell me what the results were when you and your team engaged the project and finished working on it.
Yeah. So I had a VP of facility management that reached out to me about almost 2 years ago. He was responsible for the maintenance and capital expenditures for a very large network of infrastructure. They have properties across the US and a couple in Europe. Everything they need to manage from, hey, we need to replace an elevator to the roofing needs to be redone, or hey, a window's jammed, we got to send someone out there, go fix it. All of this stuff fell into his purview. He was managing a $160 million budget set to double here in the next year or two. Problem is, with all these different projects running around, he didn't have visibility into almost $40 million of it, or at least not something that he could pull up real time and say, all right, I see where things are at. I see what's maybe getting in trouble or what's being delayed. But just to have that big of a gap in your reporting really led to a lot of stress around how that money is being spent and how it's being used. And so he came to me and said, hey, listen, I want to create a comprehensive solution here. We've got data in Workday. We've got people managing projects all over the map. The reporting is killing us. I never have the data I need. And if I do have it, it's already obsolete by the time it gets to me. So what we did was build out a custom solution in Smartsheet. We're using the Control Center application, which allows us to scale up these projects in a standardized and consistent manner so that his team now just goes in and says, hey, we're going to be redoing the lobby of one of our buildings. Boom, we put it in as a project. Here's the expenditure that got approved. We're pulling in from Workday all the invoices and being able to see all of that real time in Smartsheet so that each project manager can see what they need in one place. At the portfolio level, this VP can now walk into board meeting with confidence that, hey, I know where everything is today. I know what's going well, what needs additional support, and can act accordingly.
Great. Up to the minute, right?
Up to the minute.
Yeah, that's great. Things happen quickly. Maybe the equipment to install the elevator was supposed to be there on Monday morning, and it doesn't arrive till Tuesday afternoon. It's good to know that there's a delay and why that delay is happening. So I completely understand. It's important to keep your fingers on when it comes to resource allocation. You're paying money to redevelop or do different things like that. So you want to make sure that you're funding. And remember, all of that is backed by contracts, as you well know, right? You said you're going to be here Monday. There's a 5% levy if you don't get it done by Monday afternoon. How that works.
It has a cascading effect. But one of the really big pieces too is in organizations, when you hire someone to fill a specific role and they're a specialist in that area, you want to make sure that they can be doing that thing they do as much as possible. not sitting there filling out forms, sending a bunch of emails, hopping on phone calls. That is not value added time. So as much as we
Right.
can do to reduce that duplicate data entry, to have a single source of truth, streamline all this so that people aren't answering 500 emails a day, that allows people to spend time on the work that matters, the work that delivers value for the business.
I agree. And also because if they run into trouble on the front line, they need to let the VPs know or the project manager, so that can all be calculated and figured in, perhaps even a workaround, something like that. Let's do this. Let's work around that, or let's hold off on that one and work on the other legs of the project. See if we can get those done and then pick up where we've left off. So I completely understand that. Let's talk about data.
Yes.
What's your go-to tactic for getting the right information from the right stakeholders at the right time, especially in high-pressure environments?
Yep. Number one piece I do every single time I engage with a new client is sit down together and have a discussion about the language and terminology that we're using. This is critical. I can't tell you how many times I have seen a high stakes situation play out and some miscommunication comes across and blows the thing way out of proportion. Or maybe it wasn't even a high stakes situation to begin with, but someone said something and someone else translated it a little bit differently and said, oh no, now we got a problem. So we sit down and start talking. What is the key terminology that you use in this industry? A big one that we always come back to is status. What does it mean for something to have a red, yellow, green status ball? Those are so prevalent in so many different companies. Does green mean it's on time? Or does green mean that's already completed and it's good to go? Does green mean that things are progressing smoothly, no action needed at this time? When you go around a room, if you've got 10 people, you'll probably get 10 different answers. So it's like, let's go through this whole thing. Are we tracking statuses? Yes. Let's define what those statuses are and what they mean. Let's define what a start and end date means. Surprisingly enough, even that one can have some different interpretations around it. Once we're all speaking the same language, then we've got that common foundation. After that, it's about standardizing the processes. So we're using everything in the same way. You can jump into things from one project to another, and you're not trying to figure out which way is up. How do you even find this information? Where is it stored? The idea here is that when those high stakes situations come up, everyone is comfortable, familiar with how everything works, and you just jump in and let your training take over.
Right. What does green really mean? It's all about language. It's all about explanations. You have to create a common language.
Mhm.
A common language is so important to any project or anything you work on, because communication is very hard. People think, how did you misunderstand that? I knew exactly what I was saying. Yeah, but I didn't know what you were saying. That kind of thing. So creating a common language or common understanding for the language that you're using is very important. So when someone says, oh yeah, that status is now green. Well, what does that mean? Does everybody understand what that means? Okay, good. So I absolutely understand it. And it's so easy to just walk over that. It's so easy to just assume. The definition of assume, right? Assume makes an ass out of you and me. But if you can't make assumptions here, where people have to know. So they're confident in what the information and the data isn't truly telling them. I'm with you 150%.
And it's a little bit of an exercise in humility, because everyone knows what the word green is, but how we interpret it isn't a given. Usually I get a little bit of resistance, like, do we really need to spend time doing that? Is this really something worth spending half an hour on with a broader team? And it's like, yes. But when I give the examples, then people start realizing, oh, I see what you mean. Even if I'm just on a call with two stakeholders, I'll ask this question, I'll have them both say the answer. It's like, you said different things. Now multiply that times 10 or 20, however many people you've got across your organization or your team. And then it hits home.
I absolutely agree. It is
Yep.
time well spent to make sure everybody understands what green means, what yellow means, what red means. They're all different colors, or a check block or an X. Everybody has to understand that. Simple, yet it's very important. Now, let me ask you this question. In your view, What's the biggest misconception leaders have about project management tools, and what mindset shift needs to happen?
That is a really good question. The big misconception is that the project management tool is going to fix the problems. And that is absolutely untrue. What it's going to do is amplify whatever you have today. If you have a really good process and you're looking to get better and faster and deliver more work or take on more clients or whatever it is that you do, choosing a project management tool, say Smartsheet or anything else, is going to help you do that better. But if you have a toxic environment, you've got infighting, and you bring in a tool like this, it's going to amplify that as well. It is critical that this is not done on its own and we're going to launch this new tool, but it has to be done with a larger change management process. So really taking that deep look in the mirror and saying, hey, are we really ready for this? What do we need to change in our own processes and how we do things to make sure that this tool is going to have the intended effect for our organization?
Right. I agree. And measurable results as well. Go ahead.
I recently I was on a call with a prospective client, and he came in saying like, our sales team doesn't put numbers into our project management solution. And my team, they don't go in there and track when tasks are done. Can you just automate this whole thing to automatically pull all this information across? We had to have this hard conversation about like, this isn't going to work unless we address points A, B, and C as well. That's when that light bulb moment hit of like, okay, the issue isn't that we don't have the software. The issue is that we've got some communication. Back to what we mentioned about communication being essential. We've got some issues there. And if we can solve those in tandem, then we're going to be in a much better spot.
What it reminds me of, last summer, I did a strategic thinking session for a company that was having issues with maximizing efficiency. They install fences.
Yep.
And they were having issues with the efficiency of the time to get materials to the site, go to the subcontractor who then built it. For certain projects, they use subcontractors. So they had to get the materials to the subcontractor, and they had to scope the job, all these different things that you do in a project management, right? Scope the job, cost it, determine what materials needed to be procured, and then assembled and provided to the sub and sent out. And one of the things we found, this was the major, but one of the side issues was they had an iPad-based app where they could put everything in the iPad, all the data that was needed, and send it off to HQ, or to basically they have facilities around the country. Send it off. The area manager would look at this and, okay, fine, we need to do this, get it rolling. But there were still people who were intimidated by using the iPad. So they wrote everything but manually. They were just kind of fearful. And they reminded me, I don't know if you remember this, but when computers were really starting to come online, late 80s, early 90s, there were people who were intimidated by a computer. What is this? What is this magic box? What does it do? How do I make it work? Those kinds of things. Learning different tools. That, oddly enough, I think that's true today for AI. I think people feel somewhat intimidated by it. How do I use it? What do I do in prompting? What the hell is a prompt? Now you have a significant portion of the organization using a app on an iPad, and others who are still writing stuff that now has to be taken to a headquarters office. One of the admin people would have to sit down and actually type all that stuff into the computer app so that it would all get blended. I point to that because people sometimes lose the concept of how important process is. Process is so important. Process will cost you money every day if it's not optimized, if you're not doing the right things with it, whether you're feeding it, putting information in, or getting information out. I'd love to get your reflection on that.
I think it's twofold there. This process is absolutely critical, but people aren't always logical. People aren't the same as process. You can't optimize people the same way. Everyone comes with their own quirks, their own perspectives, their own ways of doing things. And as critical as process is, I've seen solutions that have gone into place, and I learned from experience on a couple of these and had to modify them, where it's like, hey, we went to the process route and optimized it so well, but we forgot about the people. And then we had to go back and say, hey, listen, we've maybe some field crew have been doing things on paper their entire careers. They're the best in the business, but they're not going to use an iPad. So how can we meet them halfway? And one of the examples that I have is I was working with a construction company. What we ended up doing is you can keep your logbooks on the field, snap a picture of this QR code, and it's going to open up a form, and you use that form to submit an image of the logbook that you fill out manually. All that data is being sent back to HQ in virtually real time. It's not transcribed, but they have it right there, one click away, and they can see it. This worked out really well because the field team said, yes, this is a process we're comfortable with. We can take a picture and snap it in. I don't want to go in there and fill out 50 different fields in a form and do all of that and check all the boxes. But I'll keep doing my regular process, and we'll at least get real-time reports back so we don't have to wait till the end of the week when you drive back to HQ from your field site and deliver the entire week's reports on Friday.
All right. Very well said. Very smart. That's a very smart way to bring people into the process.
Yeah, I learned from some failure along the way too, not going to lie. It wasn't
Failure's the great teacher.
It is.
That's very insightful, very creative to say, just take a picture and send it to us. We'll fix it. And knowing that they're happy, they're okay with that. Yeah, it's good. I just take a little picture and send it to you. You guys figure it out. I just want to do what needs to be done on site. So it's very interesting to me. Let me ask this question. You said that 66% of project leaders can't see the data they need when change happens, right? Why is this such a widespread issue? And what are the hidden costs when the project leaders are not able to see the information that they need? And that's 66%. That's pretty good. Pretty good number.
It's a lot. It is truly a lot. This goes back to the story I told earlier about the VP of facilities who didn't have visibility into that $40 million of spend. Companies they're operating, they're doing their business, companies are growing. And what works in the early days often doesn't work as companies scale up. It might have been fine to track all that in Excel when you were tracking $1 million, $2 million. But then at some point it scales and you've got a lot more people involved. You've got more physical locations, maybe different storefronts, different office buildings. Things become a lot more distributed, a lot more complex. And a lot of companies wait until that pain becomes more painful, that things start breaking. Oftentimes as humans, we're like, oof, this isn't good. Let's procrastinate. It works, but it's not great. When things start breaking, then we know, okay, we have to do something about it now. Oftentimes people realize that things are breaking when you're starting to have some sort of a moment of crisis, where there's a big shit, a shock to the system. Maybe you won a new big contract and you say, we're good growing at a couple % year over year, and now we're taking this big jump. This just blew everything we have out of the water. So what I highly recommend is don't ignore that nagging feeling that you have right now. If you're facing these challenges and you're saying, this is uncomfortable, but it's working. Ask yourself what happens and what's going to hold you back from taking on that next big step or next big job. And is your current system ready to handle that?
I think people, for whatever reason, have to have the pressure applied to them to say, you need to make some changes here. People want to feel comfortable. They want to do what they do and go home to their families and be in that moment with them. So many times you reach a point where they almost have to be forced to accept that there's an impact and then say, in order to do this, we're going to have to make changes.
Yeah.
and then go ahead and do it.
And that's the worst time to make the change because you're under pressure, you're stressed, and the best time to do it is, hey, business is slow this month, or it's slow in the summer because we do more business in the winter for whatever reason. And that's when you can go in and you've got a little more breathing room, clarity of mind, and time to say, hey, we're going to do this right. And then when that big thing comes in, that big contract, new customer, then you're saying, hey, we've got the solution in place. It's been proven, the team knows how to use it. And it's so much easier then.
I am a great believer that leadership is a process rather than a set of traits or charisma or styles contained in an individual. Certainly management's a process, but leadership's also a process. And the way I contrast them is that project management is really about making incremental changes as things go along. It's really an efficiency mindset, where leadership is much more about transforming mindset, a transformational mindset. In other words, big change. Everybody talks about change, but no one ever says what kind of change. There's incremental change and there's transforming change. Those are the two big changes. What I believe is that if you accept leadership as a process, it becomes a tool, just like management. And you can say, what? We need to get our leadership group together and look into the future, do some foresight. What's coming down here now that could hurt us if we don't change our managerial processes? Leadership and management need each other, right? They're two sides of the same coin. You don't throw one away. But it's a dance. You have to know when to use the leadership tool, when you're looking forward strategy. You have to know how to bring it back to the efficiency of management. They move together in a sense. Looking at a big change in the organization, that may mean new software, it may mean an upgrade to different things, but yet eventually we bring it back to the resource allocators in management, and they're the ones who say to us, okay, listen, in order to accomplish these things, this is the kind of cash we're going to need, and these are the kind of training we're going to need, and this is the kind of capability we're going to need. So I'd love to get your reflection on that idea.
I find this super interesting. And this is one of those things that's just evolving so fast. It's fun to see how it's evolving on almost a daily basis these days. The piece that I'm really trying to wrap my head around when it comes to AI is the ROI piece. You mentioned the investment side of the house, but it has to come back in some way, shape, or form. And this is where I see as leadership's job of being able to say, hey, we're going to implement AI to do something. And then once we have that vision, then management can come and say, all right, we're going to plug it in here. We're going to plug it in there. Where I've seen it work really well is in help desks. Rather than having to scan through a bajillion different articles to figure out what's wrong, how do I fix this? I can just type it into a program's AI tool. And it's like, oh, here's what you should do. Go check these settings, update this, that, and the other thing. But what I haven't seen yet is companies rolling out and saying, hey, we have this new billion-dollar strategy that's going to be AI-based yet. And that to me is going to be the secret sauce, the magic piece that's going to make it all come together. And that's where right now I'm watching all this investment coming in. An AI help bot, really handy, but that's not $1 billion output. So I'm curious to see what those $1 billion outputs are. And once those are defined, I think we're going to see seismic shifts in the industry. Again, that's where the management side is going to come and make those actually happen. But right now, I see leadership is still looking for those and trying to define what they're going to be.
Right. I agree. I think the problem is there is very little strategy right now. Just get it. Go out there and figure out, go in, bring it in, let it do these tasks that we have lined up for it. But I think it was the Carnegie Mellon report said that they took 175 different processes or tasks and fed it to different AI engines, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, all these different, and it kept getting more wrong than it got right. So, but
from a betting standpoint, these companies can't afford to wait and see what happens, because as soon as if someone figures it out and finds that billion or $1 trillion solution, that AI can solve, game over, they've won. And so to stay competitive and stay in the race, you have to keep investing without any guarantee that that solution is going to come out at the end of the day, because if you wait, you're out of the game.
And that's what everybody's fear is. If I wait, I'll be out of the game. I'll never be able to recover. But here's the thing. The backbone, at least in America, of American industry is small and medium-sized companies.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the question, 75% as I understand the number, the question becomes, these folks can't make the investment a large super company can that's got billions of income, net income coming in all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two things merge. I'm sure small and medium-sized businesses right now are using different AI tools to achieve certain levels of efficiency. But again, the creativity still belongs to the humans. And I think that's going to go on. I hope it goes on, and I believe it to be a solid statement to say, yeah, it's going to continue. So we'll see where it takes us in the future. So let's just reflect on that for a second. So in your industry, where you are right now, and maybe we're being a little bit redundant here, but that's fine. What do you see the future look like? What is the future for you and organizations like you and the organizations you help? What do you think that's going to look like?
Yep. Putting AI to the side for a second, where I see the future of the collaborative work management industry of Smartsheet as a software platform is this continuation of how work is getting done and how people are collaborating within an organization. Previously, or historically, it was, hey, let's get together and have a meeting in person, physically. And then it started migrating to, hey, now we have this thing called the telephone. Now we can have international businesses that can be working together and being able to have phone calls and coordinate together. That's moved into Teams meetings. That's moved into emails. And I think right now we're ending the email phase, which is probably a blessing for almost all of us. I don't like getting 500 emails a day. There has to be a better way. And that's where I've seen a lot of the collaborative work management space where Smartsheet sits, saying, hey, we can give you this information real time and put it in dashboards, get the right information to the right people at the right time. I think this new era is coming out of its development stage and starting to become an industry standard. People are no longer saying, hey, I'm good with 500 emails, just keep sending them over and I'll keep replying to them. The expectation is changing and the standard or the status quo is becoming, hey, put that in a dashboard. When I need that information, I will go to the dashboards and provide an aggregated view of it. Now, is AI going to come in and totally squash that? Probably. But as of right now, the shift that I'm seeing is that dashboarding, being able to work collaboratively together in the same platform is really becoming a mainstream standard. It's becoming expected, no longer the nice to have or the special investment. It's part of a core process now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the future's wide open in terms of all the technological advancements, how people will integrate or how the AI will integrate with people, creativity. You see comments like all the mundane stuff will be done by AI, but the creativity will be owned by people. Because in the end, it's always about the people and how they choose to use AI systems to do the things that the organization or an individual as a consultant or a small business wishes to do. I have this idea in terms of, I just recently went to a training, which was really great, about marketing from a different perspective, from a business perspective, from a consultancy perspective. And there is this move, if you will, to create avatars. And the tools are there now. Hey, Jen, Runway ML, these different kinds of wonderful, incredible tools where you can create an avatar of yourself. So much so that you can't tell the difference. I mean, it's very hard to tell the difference between, is this a human being over here or is this the avatar? I mean, the way, especially the movements, the hands and different things like that. And while I have embraced the power of AI and what it does for me in my work, I am very reluctant to create my own avatar. And the reason is this, and I think this will hold true. In the end, people want to know they're talking to me or they're watching me on a YouTube channel, for example, as opposed to an avatar. Do I really want that? Now, could I use an avatar, maybe created like a Pixar type of character to come in and do some things and give a lift and do something fun and interesting? Sure, that would be fantastic. But I am very reluctant because in the end, I think what people want is that human connection, that
Mhm.
human perspective. And so it'll be very interesting to see where it goes. Any thoughts on that?
What AI can produce nowadays is absolutely incredible. And it allows pretty much anyone to become a novelist, a website designer, whatever you want. AI can generate so much of that. And I think what we're seeing is that the pendulum's going to start swinging back the other way. And I think we're already seeing that, where people are starting to crave genuine authenticity. Anyone can go out there and make something flashy on AI that 10 years ago would have been like, wow, this is reserved for like the top marketing firms, best video production studios, you name it. And now what? I put a lot more credit to someone who's just recording a YouTube video or a podcast and just being themselves, because that is so much better than something that AI generated for us. I think that's going to become the new currency and what's hard to replicate, because you only have so many hours a day, and to devote time to someone versus AI doing it for you means a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. I absolutely agree. It's so funny because when you look at like movies like Star Wars, for example, people constantly rate the first and the second ones as being very high because a lot of that stuff was done with real props in studios. And then when CGI entered in, there was this pushback, as you probably well know. People said,
It was
wait a
too
minute.
much.
Yeah, it's way over the top. The example I use, and this is going to date myself, is, and probably still, but many of my contemporaries, and I'm sure many people would consider this to be true, is the greatest car chase ever filmed, and that was in the movie Bullet with Steve McQueen. And in that movie, that is the quintessential car chase. That's the one that
Mhm.
started it all. But here's the thing. There were real people in real cars doing real stuff. And now you see these car chases where so much of it is CGI. People go, they lose that touch. They lose that connection to the feeling of that person in the car doing all these gyrations, if you will, all around freeways, things like that. So it's very interesting to see. Paul, this has been a real delight. I really appreciate your time to be here on the Throttle Up Leadership podcast. It's been very, very interesting, very exploratory. We've looked at some different corners, if you will, swept out some corners, and I really appreciate it. I want to wish you, your organization, your family, the absolute best in the future. Thank you so very much.
John, thank you. This has been a lot of fun today. Thanks for having this chat, and it's been a lot of fun being on.
You're most welcome.